our beliefs create our state of being, right? And so when I say, oh, I want to do more, I want to sell more, I want to hit my number, I want to achieve X, Y, and Z in my relationships and my business, et cetera, et cetera. Your doing is just an effect of your being. And so if you want to sell more, be more. If you want to be more, excavate the nonsense that actually isn't intrinsically true to your being that you've been carrying for a really, really long time. And that is the concept of limiting beliefs. And so I'll get rocking and rolling. I'll give a agenda for this here whole workshop. We're going to start with just who am I? What is sovereign mind? We're going to educate a bit about some missing philosophy and foundations. No one ever taught me this stuff. And I went through my life not having a clear understanding of what limiting beliefs are, even after following gurus like Tony Robbins and et cetera, et cetera. There's some missing foundations. We're going to talk about what they are, how they're created. We're going to go through a group experience of discovering what might be some of our core limiting beliefs. And then we're going to talk about the sovereign mind method, 3 simple steps to transcend that self-limitation. And there's going to be the opportunity to do a live demonstration as well. All right, so a little bit about my origin story. When I was growing up, just like everyone, I had 2 parents that were trying to do the best that they could with the knowledge that they had. But what's also true is that I experienced a lot of verbal and psychological abuse, particularly from my father. I experienced different kinds of difficulty from my mom, but really what I spent a lot of years in therapy undoing was some damage from my relationship with my father growing up. And to his credit, he tried to instill good values in me, and he would show me a lot of love when I would achieve things. So if I brought home good grades, if we were working on a project outside in the yard and I figured out a new clever way to do something, he would show me love. And so that self-reinforcement of this is the way to get love, I became a high achiever. And I went through my entire life simultaneously feeling really, really driven to succeed and compete in impromptu public speaking and et cetera, while simultaneously feeling not good enough, not worthy, and like I didn't deserve love. And so there's this really, really common clash that we face as high achievers, where we're trying to meet those core needs through achieving things. And as I found out, it didn't work. It didn't work. No matter how much I achieved, it didn't matter if I closed the biggest deal in the company for the entire year. It didn't matter if I came in first in the impromptu speaking class. I still felt that hollow sense of not good enough and not worthy in my body, physiologically, from day to day. And so after a certain point of doing this for years and years, I reached this pinnacle in my career, and I was just not happy. Straight up, I was not happy. Didn't matter what I was achieving on the outside. Inside felt like shit. Inside, my inner critic was judging me, telling me I'm worthless, telling me I'm a fucking loser, all that stuff. And I just decided, like, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm actually just I'm shutting everything down. I'm taking a year off, and I'm going to figure out this inner sense of not good enough and not worthy. And I'm going to get rid of that, because that is actually what's for real holding me back in life. And I did. I went out and I did the things. I went to to Belize. I did Peru when I was 18. I went to Belize and did an ayahuasca retreat. I invested $25,000 into this coaching program, and I got to credit them. Mindfixgroup.com. Mindfix is the name of that program. They changed my life in a really beautiful way. And they showed me one way to let go of limiting beliefs. And they did a session with me where that story, I'm not good enough, lost 98% of its power over my being. And I was like, whoa, holy crap. I feel like a different person after that. Holy crap. But the way in which their program was architected, I was completely dependent upon their facilitation for my healing. And I thought to myself, this is so simple. I want to be able to do this on my own. Like, why wouldn't I? If it's this easy, if it's this simple, and you'll see, I want to do this on my own. And so I got obsessed with tinkering with myself, coming up with a model, a framework to understand how to transcend these limiting beliefs. And then I started sharing that gift and sharing that practice with other people. And I got really good at it. And I actually really, really enjoy sharing this stuff with people. So now I have a consulting practice. I call it Sovereign Mind. And we help high achievers and entrepreneurs transcend self-limitation. And I'll tell you a little something about transcend. It's a very cool word. Trance, end, ending the trance of self-limitation. There's this little illusion. It's right in front of our eyes. And it's putting us in a trance called, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I'm not capable. I'm not important. I'm not safe. Whatever that nonsense is. And we can just go like that. And then it's not a part of our reality anymore. So I like that word. It's about ending the trance. So our specialty is eliminating limiting beliefs. The way that we do that is through the Sovereign Mind method. And I'm going to give you the full download on how the Sovereign Mind method works in this presentation. So our mission is to empower 1 million people to free themselves from that old story, I'm not enough, by 2030. I think we can do it. I think we can do it. Core ethos is that you're sovereign over your mind. You create your reality. No one else controls your mind. You're in charge of yourself. You're in charge of your destiny. Core part of our philosophy. We've been in business for about a year. You can see dozens of success stories on the website. I personally have facilitated 170 people, clearing out over 614 beliefs using this method, and we're just getting started. All right, so let's talk about some of the missing philosophy and foundations. We're not taught this stuff in public school. It's really hard to find this stuff in books. I've synthesized this through many hundreds of hours of research at this point. We're going to start with a definition, okay? You can read this, but I'll speak to it as well. Beliefs are not just a statement about reality that you think is true. It's not that simple. You're a multi-dimensional being. You have 5 senses. You have a physical body. You have emotions that run through your body. And your beliefs are just as complicated as your human experience. Your beliefs are a multi-sensory, experiential construct. And beliefs create a specific perception of reality. It's fused together with language, right? I am not good enough. That's my lens. That's my specific perception through which I'm perceiving reality. You can also think of them as programs in the psyche. This is where the body of work of neurolinguistic programming offers, all right, these are just programs, and you got to identify and let go of your programs. And those influence and they generate, they create. These beliefs are causally generating specific thoughts, emotions. Our thoughts and emotions drive our behaviors. And in the Toltec sense, and we'll talk about the Toltecs, this is a civilization in Central America that existed thousands of years ago that had a deep, deep, deep understanding of what beliefs were. And in their sense of things, they said that beliefs are agreements that we make with ourselves about what reality and truth is. And so I'll illustrate that actually right here. So you can think of beliefs like building blocks of life itself. And I'll show you how foundational this is. You guys see that little creature, that cute little being on the right-hand side? Yeah. You probably call it a cat. I see hearts coming up in the chat. I love it. Question: who says that that's a cat? Germans don't. Germans actually call that a Katze. The Chinese actually call that a Mao. Different language, different meaning for the exact same experiential construct. Furry, whiskery being that purrs and meows. Words in and of themselves are just beliefs. They're just agreements that we make about what's true. We call that glasses. We call that a cat. Your alphabet is a system of beliefs that are the core foundational building block upon which all of the words that you agree, this is what it means, are built, and everything else is built upon that. So you can think of beliefs as the most core, fundamental, elemental building block of human experience itself that allows us to make these distinctions between A and B, but it's all just belief. and it's all just make-believe. So we'll talk a little bit more about the Toltecs now. I highly recommend reading The Voice of Knowledge. This is a really, really powerful body of work that puts all of this into a very succinct way by Don Miguel Ruiz, who also wrote The Four Agreements. But I recommend The Voice of Knowledge over The Four Agreements. In the Toltec philosophy, life is just a dream. You have your own dream about what it is that you want to create, what it is that you want to experience. I have my dream. We all have our own dreams. And as a result, there's an emergent collective dream. But it's all just a dream. It's all just a grand narrative, a grand story. And beliefs are just stories and agreements in your dream. They shape how you think. They shape how you see things. They shape how you feel in your body. Your beliefs create your experience. And from the moment that we're born, we start making these distinctions and making up stories about what things mean. If I cry and yell, Mom comes. If Dad yells at me, it means I'm not worthy. We create these stories and agreements to stay safe, to stay alive, and to make sense of the adverse experiences that we're having in our environment. And some stories are not true. Some stories are lies. And all lies require energy to maintain. That's why when you lie, you can feel it in your body, sapping your willpower, sapping your energy. And so when we internalize a lie, like I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not capable, I'm not important, that saps our willpower 24/7 until we cut that lie free with the truth. And in the modern sense, we say that life is a simulation. You've heard this, right? Scientists show that reality is non-real. It's like, okay, thanks, guys. I don't know what that means. But it's still useful to understand that beliefs are like programs in the mind. These programs control our thoughts, our emotions, our behaviors. And at the core, this is important to understand, beliefs are neither good or bad. They're neither right or wrong. They are what they are. And when we're children, we create them, usually in order to help us meet certain needs. Like, I'm feeling cut off from love. I'm going to create a belief called I'm not good enough so that I change my behavior, so that I go out and I achieve things and Dad gives me more love. That was my strategy, right? So you can see how creating these beliefs at the core is just helping us meet our needs for safety, for love, for identity, et cetera, et cetera. And we're doing it unconsciously as children. There's a chance to undo that creation as adults. And some programs are like viruses. At this point, it's like, I'm not good enough. It stopped being useful when I was about 10, maybe 18 if I'm generous. And now I'm 27. Now I'm 37. Now I'm 47. It's like, it's time to let this go. At this point, it's like a virus. And beliefs are the root cause. So I love this metaphor. Let's use the metaphor of a tree. A little tiny leaf is up at the surface called, oh, I don't feel comfortable asking for a raise. I feel kind of nervous having the conversation. It's like, why is that? Well, what if I get rejected? Rejection is scary. It's dangerous. Well, what's underneath that? There's a trunk called, what makes me good enough is having people like me. That's what makes me good enough. Well, in order to believe that, you'd have to believe at the root, I'm not good enough. And if you pull up the tree by the root, you collapse the trunk, you collapse the branch, you collapse all the leaves. That's why when you go for a core belief and just make that one shift, it's a huge difference in your state of being. Because going back to the building block metaphor, it's all stacked on top of each other. You pull out the bottom Jenga block, the whole tower falls. And so when we are investigating things like self-doubt, fear of rejection, fear of failure, imposter syndrome, self-sabotage, we're going to go to the root causal beliefs in the psyche. All right, I'm going to take a deep breath. This slide is key. It's a lot to ingest. How are beliefs created? We've talked about this idea that beliefs are a multi-sensory construct. So our belief is created through our experiences, through our five senses, and then whatever meaning that we create in our minds, logical abstractions, whatever meaning that we create, fuse together with what we're experiencing. So beliefs don't just make logical sense. If they did, you could just tell yourself that you're worthy, that you're good enough, and that you're capable, and you would instantly believe it because it's true. But that's not how it works. Beliefs make visual and emotional sense. We'll dive deeper into what that means. Bring your attention now to this little girl who's looking at her father. She's having an experience that a lot of us can relate with. A parent is scolding us, being stern. Simultaneously, all at once, she's having a thought called "I'm not enough." She's seeing her father's stern eyes. She's feeling fear and shame and sadness, and she's sensing tension and heat in her body. And so there's like a soup of experience that's all happening across all of these senses. And that soup of experience is fused with the thought, "I'm not enough." This is happening because I'm not enough. She sees it that way, and she feels it that way in her body. And seeing and feeling are more deeply rooted ways of knowing things to be true. Seeing and feeling is more deeply rooted than just logic. So I'm going to talk about the concept of confusion. Confusion doesn't just mean I don't understand. It actually means the fusing together two concepts, confusion, which are truly separate. And so when we're creating our beliefs, we have a story about what this experience means. The story is, this means I'm not good enough. And that story gets fused together with the images that we see, the feelings and the sensations that we feel in our body. And so to her, this little girl, this experience means I'm not enough. I'm not worthy. Father's stern eyes mean I'm not worthy. That's how I see it. This fear in my body means I'm not worthy. This tension means I'm not worthy. That's how she sees it, and that's how she feels it. She's confused. None of that's true. That's not what it means. But to her, it's very real in that moment. So we honor the experience of the child, and when we shine the light of truth on it, it dissipates. We'll get to that later. So let's talk about how to find core beliefs. I'm going to teach you something that I absolutely love. This is so simple. If a belief actually for real has no power over you whatsoever, you'll feel nothing when you speak it out loud. We call that nonsense. You can't make sense of it. For example, you don't believe turquoise is a gritty planet. That's complete and utter nonsense. You don't believe I can't speak English. And when you speak those words out loud, they don't have any resonance with you whatsoever. However, when you speak the words of a belief that you do hold in your subconscious, somewhere in your body, maybe not just in your mind, but in your body as a feeling, it'll trigger sensation. It'll trigger emotions. It'll trigger sensations. It might even trigger a sense of truth or a sense of agreement. Like, yeah, I can't trust women. It's true. I'm really sad that it's true, but it's fucking true. Or, and this is the funniest one to me, it'll trigger a sense of rebellion. Like, I'm not good enough. And then there's a part that like goes, that's not true. That's fucking bullshit. And it's like, well, you probably don't have that part that creates a sense of rebellion when you say, I'm a cup of pudding. No, I don't. Damn. Maybe there's something there. It's like, yeah, maybe there is something there. So this is what I call the sense test. You speak the belief out loud and you notice, does this make sense? It's really simple. And so you guys can stay on mute, but I want to invite you to try this experience for yourself. Let's start by anchoring in what nonsense feels like. This is a baseline, a benchmark. If any of the beliefs in red below don't resonate with you, they'll feel the exact same thing as saying, I am a quaint rubber ducky. So I invite you to try it. Go ahead and say one or two of those nonsense phrases in black. I am blue divided by yellow. I just laugh. I can't speak English. I chuckle. And now just look at these below and pick a few of them. And after you speak them, just notice, does any sensation arise whatsoever? There's no judgment. It's pure curiosity. I am not worthy. I am unwanted. There's something wrong with me. So drop in the chat if you notice something, if you noticed any sensation arise from those. You don't have to share which one if you're not comfortable, but I'm curious to know, did you feel something? Yeah, totally. That's called being a human. Like, respect. Thank you, Bill, for that. Yeah, Lena, perfect. And so this self-awareness, like, okay, maybe I know this isn't true logically, but I feel something in my body. This self-awareness is the first step to transcending it. And you can't fool yourself with this either. Like if you change one letter, I am not Worthington, you're not going to feel anything. But as soon as it's I'm not worthy, it's like boom. And so we wonder, like, why don't I feel at ease in my body, in my life, in my sales process? Well, there's so many different categories of belief that could be at the core of it, and everyone is different. But there's a lot of self-worth beliefs that fall into this. This is true for me. I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. There's self-efficacy beliefs. I can't do it, or I can't do this. I'm not capable. I'm not important. I don't know enough. For that matter, I'm not smart enough, and I'm not experienced enough. It's like, shit, what am I supposed to do about that? And then trust and safety is also a huge component. Self-trust, trust in life, trust in the safety of your experience, safety in the world. A lot of people carry, myself included, a sense of it's not safe to be seen. It's not safe to be my true self, et cetera, et cetera. And so one way to find what core beliefs ring true for you is to look at a list like this, speak them out loud, highlight the ones that do make sense to you. And you go, okay, these three are like my top. These are the ones that I would actually like to not experience anymore. But there's another way. There's another way, and it's called sentence completions. And so what I invite y'all to do is to follow along. You can pull up a notepad. You can do it on your computer. But here's the core concept of it. The psychologist Nathaniel Branden created this technique, and it has a lot more applications than this. But the core idea is you start with a fragment of a sentence. If I get rejected, it means ... And then you just allow your mind to give 6 to 12 spontaneous answers. And what we'll do is we'll review what those answers are from your subconscious. That's where it's pulling from. And what we inevitably find is that, okay, there's a few limiting beliefs in there. Like if I get rejected, it means they don't like me. That could be a signal to no one likes me. If I get rejected, it means I'm not good enough. Well, there you go. That was easy, right? So the invitation is this: pick one of these. My inner critic judges me as, if I fail, it means, if I get rejected, it means, and just give yourself the time to write 6 to 12 responses from your subconscious. Don't filter, don't censor, just write what comes up. It's all welcome here. I'll give you 1 to 2 minutes to do that. All right. I'm curious if anyone feels comfortable sharing some of their results in chat or out loud. Go for it, Bill.
Um, okay. Um, I've worked on this before a bit, and I think I've overcome the fear of rejection. I've told myself that rejection is God's protection, right? It's His own way of letting me know that that thing is not right for me. So I accept rejection and I look at it like a blessing. But what I struggle with is self-doubt, that inner voice. You mentioned, I call it the committee. I call it wrestling with my demons, right? But they come at me, and sometimes I hear that, and what I hear is self-doubt, right? My inner critic says you're gonna fail, or self-sabotage your own success, right? Whenever good success comes my way, I tend to sabotage it myself. Self-will run riot. It's like my self-will will just run riot, and sometimes, I feel like I can't even trust myself because, and I'll excuses as being addicted to adrenaline, right? That
Mm,
makes it brave. However, it can lead me to, not very pleasant places.
Thank you, Bill. Really appreciate you sharing that. And there's a lot of good self-awareness in that. And the one that struck me as requiring no exploration whatsoever is the sense of I can't trust myself. I've seen that in so many people, and it is so, so, so deep. And it's really freeing to fully let that go. And there's also very interesting things in there of self-will run riot, adrenaline is brave. There's a lot of different routes that could be explored in that domain. But thank you for sharing. I'll drop that in the chat just so folks can follow along. Does anyone else care to share what they found?
So I chose the fear of rejection.
Hmm.
And if I get rejected, it means I'm not good, I'm doing something wrong, there's something bad within me, I failed, or like I'm not important to them.
Yeah. Thank you, Lena. Makes
Right.
perfect sense. I'm not good. There's something wrong. I'm not important to them. And so, again, our subconscious literally surfaces the core wound. The core wound is what creates that interpretation in the first place. And so the first place I would look is I am not important. There's
I
something
just
wrong with me.
realized that unintentionally I connected like fear of rejection and the fear of failure because I wrote, if I get rejected, I'm a failure.
Hmm. Totally. And that's also a very common belief. I am a failure. Super common. And so these two can be interlinked. People can link self-sabotage to fear of failure. I don't even want to try because I'm going to fail. So many, everyone is so beautiful and unique. It never ceases to blow my mind. So,
I actually think these three, I mean, they all go hand in hand. We all relate with one more than the other. I think for me, it would be fear of failure. I think some of the first things that come to mind would be, I mean, like, oh, I didn't make it, or I wasn't good enough. Maybe I wasn't prepared enough, or maybe I need to try harder, be better. But I do try to take out of, every lesson that, okay, I learned something, even though you still have that self-doubt, that fear of rejection. Um, but for me, I think that's the one I related with the most is the fear of failure, trying to get it out of that comfort zone and break out.
I hear that. That makes all the sense in the world. And there's a lot of good that can be done again through just having the self-awareness. Like, all right, these are the stories that come up. What can I do about it? So excellent, excellent work. I feel like you guys got really clear. So well done. So now the question becomes, what do I do with this? Now I have the self-awareness. I have this list of things that I can process. Well, how do I actually process it? Well, I'm so excited to share that with you. This is why I'm here. 3 steps to transcend these. So our beliefs are multisensory constructs. They make logical sense to us sometimes. Oftentimes they don't at all. So it'll be funny when we get to that. But they also make visual sense to us. That's how we see things. And they make emotional sense to us. That's how we feel. And so we process the belief logically, we process the belief visually, and then we process the belief emotionally. And at that point, there's no other part of your being that lie can live within. You're free from it. And there's these thoughts and these images and these emotions and these sensations that tie that belief. I like to use the acronym of TIES. That's what's tying the belief into you. At this point, it's probably not a logic problem. So we'll get to that. So again, the mind can have some logical ties, conscious logical reasons. It can also have subconscious reasons. I'm holding on to this story of I'm not good enough because a part of me is afraid to let it go. My inner child, for example, that's super real. That does happen. There's visual ties of memories where you think that you saw evidence. You think you saw proof. Dude, I saw I wasn't good enough when my dad was yelling at me. I saw I wasn't smart enough when I failed my test. I saw I was a failure in my first marriage. Like I saw. That's how I know. There's images in our minds that we associate with the belief. Teach you how to process that visually. And then there's emotions and sensations. You probably felt some of them while you were writing it out. And while you were speaking it, there's emotions and sensations that tie the belief into the somatic body. We'll teach you how to process that as well. And so this is the sovereign mind method. We proceed with logical sense, then we go into visual sense and emotional sense. And at the end of that, you've processed every sense. It becomes nonsense. It doesn't make sense anymore. So, part one, grand reveal of how to process your beliefs logically. It ain't true, the end. You probably don't need to process it consciously, logically. You probably understand that at a fundamental level, it's not true that you're not good enough. You've done a lot of self-work. You've gone to therapy. You've done coaching. You've done a lot of different things, reading books. If you're convinced that it is actually true, there's a whole body of work online about how to reframe. I encourage you to look into reframing because it's all just a perspective. Just like Bill said, rejection isn't a bad thing. It's actually a blessing. Rejection is my divine protection, right? Beautiful reframe. If there is a reason you're holding on to the belief, it's likely subconscious. And throughout this presentation, I'm going to give you some magic questions. Keep these, know these by heart. And so the first magic question is there any part of me that's not fully ready to let this go? If so, why? And when you scan, when you really, really check within yourself, you might get back, no, I'm ready to let this go. If so, beautiful, bless you. You're actually ready. However, probably about 50% of the time when we're talking about something really core, like I'm not important, I'm not capable, I'm not good enough, there's a part of you that actually kind of wants to hold on to that. There's a good reason for that. And we've got this example again with this little girl down below. There's a part of you that thinks if I'm not enough, then dad will approve of me. I'll match my father's view and I'll get his love and his love makes me safe. Something like that. Some core fundamental need is being met. And so these inner parts, you can look into internal family systems therapy for more information on parts work. That's how I got introduced to it. These parts are holding on to these beliefs because they think that it's critical for their core needs to be met. And so you can ask the part that's holding on, what needs does this belief help us meet? And you'll get back in response something like love, safety, identity, comfort, control. I'll give you guys the slides for this. There's a really simple process. I'm not going to read through all of this text, but you talk to that part until it's actually ready to let go of the belief. And you help it see that, like, dude, this belief is for real, actually not meeting our needs for love right now. In fact, it's actually the whole story of I'm not worthy. That's making it harder for me to experience love. If you'd like to experience love, would you be open to letting this go? Right? It's really that simple. And you'll get the slides for this, so don't sweat it. I include an example in the presentation as well, and we'll skip that for now. And that's the secret of processing beliefs logically, is that you probably don't have a conscious reason why you're holding on to it. So explore your subconscious reasoning. Is there a part of you that's not ready to let it go? If so, why? Talk to that part until it's ready to let go, and you'll know when it's ready to let go. It will tell you. You engage in a dialogue with that part of yourself. I hope that makes sense. So, part 2. How do I process my beliefs visually? Well, here's the big secret. Meaning cannot be seen. All meaning is created by the mind and then projected onto your experience. And so the meaning that you derive from an event is your interpretation of experience. It's not the experience itself. So when I ask people, did you ever see that you're not good enough? They say, yeah, I did. I saw it with my own 2 eyes. Here's how I saw it. When I was 8 years old, there was a group of kids around me and they were bullying me. They were pointing at me and laughing at me. And I go, okay, I understand. Here's a question. Do you actually see with your own 2 eyes in the same way that you can see your own hand? Do you actually see I'm not good enough anywhere in any of these pictures? In the same way that you can see your hand, do you see I'm not good enough? And the answer is no. In truth, what you can see are kids smiling and pointing and laughing. That's what you hear. You're having a very, very real experience as an 8-year-old. Good news, if you look as hard as you possibly can, you won't be able to find I'm not good enough dangling around in 3-dimensional space. It was never there. That was a creation of the mind. This experience to me means I'm not good enough. But who created the interpretation? We did. Every time. Without fail. Which is beautiful. That's our power. We're divine creators. We have the capacity to create any perception of reality that we want. Rejection is a blessing. That's such a beautiful creation. I'm going to come back to that again and again. And when you look at an F on a test, do you see I'm not smart enough? Or do you see a red letter? Technically speaking, you see a red letter. And it's stripping away the meaning. It's stripping away the interpretation that allows your mind to actually become free from it. And so the magic question is, did I ever truly see that I'm not important, that I don't matter, that I'm not capable, that I'm not safe, that I'm not good enough, that I'm not worthy in my life? In the same way that you can see this computer mouse, did you actually see it with your own 2 eyes? In truth, the answer is no, 100% of the time. Nobody in human history has ever one time, literally ever, seen that they're not good enough. They saw things happening. They saw people behaving. And that's real. And that made them feel things in their body. And that's real. That's the truth. But do you get it? Do you see that? Do you see that that it's not possible to see the belief dangling around in 3-dimensional space? And so the real magic trick is looking back through your past. Look through your memories and ask yourself, did I truly see this? Or did I see people behaving? Did I see things happening? And if you want, you can make up new interpretations for what you saw. It's all creation. You can say, I didn't see that I'm not worthy of love. I saw my dad was really sick and suffering, and he dealt with a lot of repressed anger. I didn't see that I'm not important. I saw my parents paying more attention to their career than I would have liked. I saw that I would have liked more attention myself. Huh. well, that's a lot better than I'm not important. That's a lot better than I'm not worthy. That's a lot better than I'm not good enough. You can see it any way that you want. But the real healing comes from doing that factory reset of going back and just being honest with yourself about what you really saw in the past.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes, Bill.
What if you felt it though? I get it that you physically don't see it, but what if you felt it? And the
That's the
problem,
question.
yeah, and
Yeah.
the problem I have is because of my faith, I have to like, you know, electricity. You can't physically see it, but you see the results when you turn on the lights, or you know, you can, you know, see certain things, but you feel them. And because of my, you know, spirituality, I connect with that. So when I felt that fail or that, you know, that emotion, and I associate it to it, how do you get rid of that?
I love this question. It's the most important question because this is where the modality that I was introduced to fell short. I reached that same level of awareness that you did. Okay, I didn't see it. That's helpful, but I felt it. And we're going to get to that. That's actually the whole next part of the presentation. So for some people who are very visual processors, this is all it takes. And I'm kinesthetic, I'm emotional. And so I'll definitely walk you through that. So yeah, you can't see it. It was never there. That's the important thing. The magic question, did I ever actually see the belief? Every single memory, you saw people behaving, you saw things happening. That's your interpretation, and your interpretation is your creation. You're a divine creator. You can create any reality that you please. And so now we get to the emotional sense. I love this. All right. Good news. Body sensations also don't intrinsically mean anything. So if you rub your hands together and feel a lot of heat, that heat does not mean that the Pope is a dinosaur. It doesn't mean that you're not good enough, and it doesn't mean anything intrinsically. Similarly, in truth, if you feel emotions and sensations in your body, this emotion is just energy. The presence of energy or the lack of energy anywhere in the universe doesn't mean anything about you in your being. So you might feel some emotional energy called sadness, called fear, called anger in your body. And in truth, just because you feel that does not mean that you're not worthy, that you're not good enough, not important, not capable. Those are ideas that are separate from the actual feeling themselves. Then the question becomes, well, actually, for me, they're tied together. So how do I separate them? I'm glad you asked. This tying together is another example of confusion. It's fusing together two concepts which should be separate. It's fusing together the feeling with the sentence, the English language sentence, I am not important. I am not good enough. So in truth, once again, belaboring the point, fear does not mean I can't do it. Tension does not mean I'm not good enough. And the magic question is there any emotion or sensation that's tied to this belief? You ask yourself that, and it immediately occurs. Your subconscious just gives it to you. Is there any emotion or sensation that's tied to I am not important? Boom, there it is. Oh, I feel that tension in my chest. I feel that sadness behind my eyes. Okay, fully experience it. Just give yourself a moment to be with it. This emotion has been with you for a really long time. Just be with it. It's okay. It's just an emotion. It's just energy present in your body. That's all it is. And so, for example, some shame in the stomach, some tension in the throat, some fear in the chest, whatever the sensation is, be with it. Isolate each sensation one at a time. Pick one sensation first and connect with it and fully be with that neck tension, right? Whatever it is. And ask yourself, does this tension in my throat mean I'm not good enough? No. No, it doesn't mean that. Are you sure? Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure. It doesn't mean that. Okay, great. Well, what do you notice? It feels decoupled. Interesting. In principle, what's happening here is you're breaking the agreement that you created that this feeling means this story. That's what you're doing. You're breaking the agreement. The way that you do that is you summon the emotional energy that's tied to the story. You lock your attention on it. And with your attention focused on it, you ask yourself, does this sensation actually mean I'm not important? And in truth, the answer is no 100% of the time. Now, there's a caveat here, which is that sometimes your brain will say, yes, it does. Yes, it does mean that, actually, motherfucker. I'm not letting this go. And that's where I didn't include it in a slide because it's a more nuanced facet of the process. That's where parts work comes back into play. If you actually cannot let it go, if your brain is not capable of acknowledging the truth and it's telling you that, yes, this feeling does mean this, ask yourself, is there any part of me that's not totally ready to let this go? Because it's at that last 1 yard line. Your subconscious knows that you're actually about to transcend this forever. And that moment is when it feels not safe to let it go. Maybe before you tried to access that part and it was like, no, it's fine. You get right up to it. And it's like, actually, it's not fine. Right? So that can happen as well. So just be aware that parts can interfere with this. But does this make sense? This very, very simple process.
Yep, it does.
Mhm.
I've read that also. It wouldn't be a bad idea to think of a time when you're like in the zone, when everything's going perfect and you feel, good, and start visualizing that feeling, and then try to say that word. That way you can associate it with something positive instead of that negative feeling that you've had. And that's how I read Tony Robbins' Awaken the Giant Within and Unlimited Power a few times to try to get some sense out of this. But I like what you're saying. I love it.
Oh, thank you, Bill. Yeah. And, on the front of positively programming yourself, there's a whole literature out there. And my focus is solely on stripping away the old negative programs that no longer serve us. So I think it's beautiful if you choose to do that. But this is the core essence of it. Does this feeling actually mean the belief? No. Great. Notice the energy literally shifting. Notice your brain literally going, oh, that's not what that means for me anymore. That's not true for me anymore. And it's in that moment, once you've gone through all the sensations, and you can go back and ask yourself, is there any other sensation? Is there any other feeling that's still tied to this? For most people, it's like 1 or 2. Some people, it's like 7 or 8. It's like big deal. It's like really deep emotional thing. But for most people, it's 1 or 2, and you let them go. And at that point, it's not true. You come to this understanding that I actually never saw that it was true. And for that matter, none of the feelings or sensations in my body that I thought meant that story actually meant that that story was true. And it's at that point that you're free from it. It no longer makes logical sense. It no longer makes visual sense. It no longer makes emotional sense. It's nonsense. And the way that you know definitively that it's gone is you go back to the sense test at the end of this process and you say it out loud and you notice, I am a piece of bubblegum. I am the Pope's smelly armpit. I am not enough. Yeah, it's gone. That doesn't ring true at all. I don't feel anything when I say that. Great. You're free from it. Congrats. Way to go. So the question becomes, would anyone like to volunteer for a sovereign mind experience in letting go of a limiting belief? I'm here to share the gift, and I'd be honored, truly, if anyone would like to volunteer.
I'm gonna volunteer, Lena. No, I'm kidding. I talk too much, man. But if nobody goes, I'll go. I'm willing to do it.
All right. Great. Lena's cry laughing over there. So awesome, Bill. So let's drop in for a sec. I want to just like get us both grounded into a good emotional state. And how I like to invite that is to just stretch your arms over your head and give a big yawn. And we'll do another one. 2 yawns. And one last yawn. 3rd time's the charm. So Bill, which belief that you discovered earlier would you like to take a look at?
Fear of failure. And yeah, you know, it's hard to describe, man. You know, now that I can talk, it's hard to say it. But yeah, just fear of, not necessarily fear of failure, but sabotaging like my own success. You know what I mean? It's like I'm pretty good at that. I'm that guy that everything's going perfect, and you know, I climbed the ladder of success, but then I slowly, you know, sabotage my own success. Comes from, you know, childhood issues, right? That I have to let go of.
That makes a lot of sense, Bill. And I'm mindful that we've got about 30 minutes, and a pattern like self-sabotage, in my experience, often takes a good bit of digging and exploration, and there's a lot of different facets of it. One thing that you shared earlier is I can't trust myself. And that would be a good example of something that we could choose to take a look at together.
Okay.
Does that feel okay with you?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Beautiful. All right. So let's anchor into some nonsense first, right? We're going to take it from the top. And Bill, if you're not speaking, just for the quality of the recording, I'd request that you stay on mute and just unmute when you would like to speak. Cool. So let's try speaking out loud. I can't speak English. Nothing there, right? And you can unmute for this. not to, you know, henpeck you. What happens if you say, I am wiggle waggle woo?
I am wiggle waggle woo. No feeling.
I can't trust green doors.
I can't trust green doors.
Nada. And what about I can't trust myself?
I can't trust myself.
And what do you notice?
A little burning sensation on my chest.
Yeah. And is there anything else beyond that burning sensation in the chest?
Throat got dry.
Dry throat. Good. Yeah. That's exactly what we're looking for, is physiological senses in the body. And so, the first question is, do you think that it's true that you're actually fundamentally incapable of trusting yourself?
No. I know I could trust myself.
Good.
It's just them voices that won't leave me alone, that keep talking, man. Don't tell my boss that. Make him.
I hear you. I have those voices. I have my entire life. I know what you mean. And I think everyone here does. There's no judgment, brother. So The real question is there any part of you that might not be fully ready to let that go for any reason? The thing of, I can't trust myself.
If there is, I'm willing to bury it, man. At this stage in my life, I gotta shut this down. I can't look at the past anymore. You know what I mean? I gotta let it go.
I respect your passion, your enthusiasm, but what's really important, Bill, is that you honestly inquire within yourself and give some space. If there is a part of you that wants to hold on to it, allow it to speak. If there is, there might not be. So the question is, again, ask yourself, is there any part of me, for any reason, that's not ready to let this go? I can't trust myself.
No, I'm ready. I'm ready to let it go.
Beautiful. If a part ever were to come up, I'll hold space for it. It's all good. So I would imagine that there's some things that have happened in your life. You've made some choices that you ultimately wish that you didn't. Some patterns of behavior. For me, it boiled down to addiction to cannabis, addiction to alcohol, addiction to pornography. These were the sources of I can't trust myself. And then violating promises and agreements that I made in romantic relationships with women that I really loved and cared for. And so you don't have to go into any level of detail that you don't feel completely comfortable with. But do you have a sense of what might be some of the earliest experience that showed you, I can't trust myself?
First of all, I qualify for everything you just shared. So I qualify for all those. I'm with you 100%. Divorce, right? And all of the above. Yeah, when I was 3 years old, man, you know, my mom left to the States and she never said goodbye. You know what I mean? One day she was there, the next day she was gone. And like, you know, the people that I stayed with were my uncles and my grandmother. You know, they would constantly tell me that the reason she left was because I was a bad kid. You know, it's the reason why my dad wasn't around. So it's like I felt like I was almost programmed, you know what I mean? Damaged goods showing up because at that age of 3, constantly hearing, yeah, that's why your mom left. That's why nobody loves you. That's why. And, you know, so then my grandma becomes that world, right? Well, when I was turned 8 years old, my grandmother takes me to the States. And now I'm living with my mom, who's a total stranger. And grandmother leaves. So those issues of abandonment, you know, because from 3 to 5, my mother's gone, you know. Then at 8, grandmother's gone. And it's like that identity is like looking for it. They have different last name. And it was just, it wasn't fun, you know.
Bill, I really, really appreciate you sharing these experiences, and they're very important experiences. And I want to make sure that our attention is focused on the sense of I can't trust myself. And for you, does that feel related? Does that feel like those early messages of being 3 years old and telling and hearing from adults that you're the reason why mom left? Does that feel related to I can't trust myself?
You know what? When I look at it that way, no. It shouldn't relate to it. Because I didn't do anything, you know?
And look around in those memories that you have. Do you actually see anywhere in the picture, I can't trust myself?
I don't.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I don't see it. There's no reason why I shouldn't trust myself, you know? I mean, I was an infant.
Yeah, you were just a sweet, innocent toddler. And so let's take that foundation and carry that same concept forward. Is it true that in your romantic relationships that you made choices?
Absolutely.
And some of
Absolutely.
those choices we came to regret And we had some feelings about the choices that we made at different points, right? I'm curious, Bill, did you ever at any point like resolve to make different choices too?
I tried, I think,
Yeah.
I would act as if I could, but subconsciously it was like, once they find out, that message that was given at an early age, they're going to leave anyway, so it's like, I don't know.
I hear that. I feel that. And I can relate to that. And if you have a sincere intention to show up in a certain way and to show up differently, and you don't necessarily follow through 100% accurate, does that have to mean that you can't trust yourself for the rest of your life?
No, it does not.
And when you look through those relationships, did you see, I can't trust myself? Or did you see yourself behaving and your partner's reactions to how you behaved?
Yeah, I saw the reactions, but I didn't actually see I can't trust myself in that moment.
And so now, Bill, I invite you to just look back through any experience, any memory that could be tied to I can't trust myself. And did you actually see it? Or did you see yourself behaving, things happening, people reacting?
You know what? As I look back, I know that I've always had the right intentions, the right motive.
That's beautiful. And I ask again, not to belabor the point, but to just be sure, be thorough. Are you sure? Did you ever see, I can't trust myself at any point in your life?
No, I didn't physically see it. The outcomes could be questionable. However, I didn't physically see it at any point.
Good. Good. And when you say the outcomes could be questionable, what does that mean to you?
Making promises like, I'm not going to drink like that again.
Yep.
2 weeks later, I find myself in the same scenario, or I won't spend that way, or I won't go to this particular place. And then, lo and behold, here we go again.
And have you ever noticed that those events aren't happening now?
Yes,
And
I
have you made a shift in your life since
Absolutely.
then?
Absolutely.
I believe you.
Absolutely.
100%. And so when you made a promise not to drink and then a couple of weeks later drank, hey, I've been there. Could that possibly have meant, instead of I can't trust myself, something like back in 2013, I made a promise not to drink to someone and then had a drink 2 years later or 2 weeks later?
Totally.
Yeah. This is the power of it is what it is.
Mhm.
It's like, that's true. I did that. Does that mean I can't trust myself? No, it meant, if anything, if I wanted to make up a story, I could make up something like, it meant that I was struggling to regulate my use of alcohol at that time. Doesn't mean I can't trust myself. So the question now becomes, is there any feeling or sensation in your body, and just really feel into it, any feeling or sensation in the body that's still tied to I can't trust myself?
No, not really. I actually feel kind of like when we first started and I said those gibberish words. And I think it's your tonality and the way you described it. You just like diffused everything. So I'm not feeling that anymore.
Oh, that's beautiful, man. It's like,
That's crazy.
that's how simple it can be.
That's
So
crazy.
some beliefs they just have visual roots. And when you process the belief visually and you bring some love and compassion back to your past self and say, hey, man, in truth, this didn't mean that I can't trust myself. This didn't mean that I'm not important. This didn't mean that I'm not capable. It was what it was. There it goes. It's so beautiful. It's beyond words. But I want to be double, triple sure, Bill. What happens when you speak the words out loud? Because that's the sense test. So let's be thorough. Go ahead and say out loud, I can't trust myself.
I can't trust myself. I can't trust myself. I'm not feeling it, man. I don't feel that burning sensation anymore, man. I can't trust myself. Of course you can, Bill. You got this.
I love that for you, man. Oh,
Thank
so
you,
great.
bro.
Thank you. Truly an honor. Truly an honor. No pressure.
Yo,
No pressure.
yeah, if no one's comfortable doing it, don't feel pressure to do it. It's totally cool.
Yeah, for real.
And you can always do these things separately one-on-one.
I
I think what I like though, what I think is really important for me is to like listening to those and Bill, I appreciate you kind of like doing that.
For
And
real.
it looks like that was helpful. And obviously that takes a lot of courage. What I think
Yes.
I've really gathered from these sort of sessions is like kind of the tools that you can take on your own and really look at like a lot of the things that kind of mess with your head are stem from internal beliefs that you can kind of break down to their core. You know what I mean? So I like taking these questions and these ways of going about things from a session like today and you know, using that for my own kind of introspection.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. It's been like completely life-changing for me to be able to do this introspective work on my own. And that's why I got obsessed with it in the first place. It's like this is so easy. Like people need to know about it.
I love it. I absolutely love it. The note that I wrote to myself is, I am the author and the creator of this story. I give it the power to it. So I'm going to change that and rewrite it, you know, and change that whole scenario that I visualize or I think about, you know what I mean? Whenever, you know, that trauma seems to creep up, I'm going to give it a new meaning. You know, I'm going to create a new story. You know, I'm the one that gave you the power. I'm going to take it away and give it a new power in a positive way. And I feel super, like, you know, the weight lifted off my shoulders. Why did I volunteer? I've been looking for this, you know, I've been searching, I mean, for the answers hard, you know, and thank you, Jed, for putting this together and you know, and
right.
it's amazing. I really appreciate it.
Everything comes full circle at the right time, Bill. Look at you. You hear that milkshake, Jed puts this together. And you know, right timing, right place. Boom.
Love it.
Thanks,
love it, love it,
Gladius.
love it. Yeah, it's my pleasure. My pleasure. Jed, you can cut the recording. I got a couple more slides that I'll share after that.